सदफ,
हाँ जी सर, बताएं फरमाएं।
आज हमारी पॉडकास्ट मेटाफोरिकली और लिटरली लिट होने वाली है।
मतलब पहले ही बोल
क्यों?
दो, फिर लिटरली तो बोल ही दिया। क्यों होने वाली लिटरली?
बिकॉज आज हमारे पास रोशन है।
हाय
Wow.
हाय, वाह वाह वाह।
I didn't see that
ओहो,
coming.
ओह आई डिडंट सी दैट कमिंग है। मुझे लगा अनु मलिक बोले कोई आग लगा देगा, आग लगा देगा, आग लगा देगा। ओहो का सब। वेलकम
वेलकम
रोशन।
टू द नान करी पॉडकास्ट रोशन।
थोड़ा लेट नहीं बुलाया हमने रोशन को, दिवाली टाइम बुला लेते यार।
Thanks, man. What an intro. I mean, I totally did not expect that. Yeah.
For our listeners, Roshan has nothing to do with Ritik, just saying. Or maybe,
Yeah. I mean,
who knows?
no, I really don't. Yeah.
अच्छा कुछ नहीं।
Yeah.
They
But
share if you're watching on YouTube, they share good looks. But apart from that, completely different profession achievements. Which to come to professional achievements, Roshan runs marketing at Vymo. It's a sales engagement platform. He is also a seasoned podcaster, and we love having seasoned podcaster because then हमें ज्यादा मेहनत नहीं करनी पड़ती, वही बात करते हैं। Roshan runs the startup operator and the Bharatvaarta podcast.
ये एक बात पूछनी है मुझे एक्चुअली टू बोथ अर्चित एंड रोशन। इन जनरल थोड़ी सी अंग्रेजी में हाथ तंग है मेरा। व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय सीजन्ड? इन्होंने नमक छिड़क के आए खुद के ऊपर।
I think it just means that you've seen a lot of seasons. I mean, something like that, or something is
I don't
seasoned,
know.
right? I mean, you've seen, like, you season fruits and vegetables or something of that sort, right? I mean, so I just think that, I mean, you've seen a passage of time, I suppose.
अच्छा, like a veteran. What is the difference between a veteran and seasoned?
I mean, they're used synonymously most of the time, but yeah, I mean, that's a good thought starter, you know. I mean, maybe. Yeah.
People who are listening, if they are also seasoned, tell us what seasoning तुम पे गया है और हम भी वही seasoning डालेंगे खुद के ऊपर। Salt and pepper लगाएंगे बालों पे।
Season is accustomed to particular conditions, according to Oxford Dictionary.
Seen a lot of seasons, basically.
Yeah. Veteran is ex-member of armed forces, but that is used colloquially as seasoned also.
Yeah. He's seen some shit.
लेकिन हिंदी वैसे बोलते हैं ना, कई मौसम देखे हैं। So say seasons. English Hindi translation.
I think
that's actually interesting.
I think by the end of this podcast, I'll learn a lot more Hindi, man. Thanks to Sadaf.
Thank you. See, that's why I moved to UP so that I can learn Hindi better.
See, I was going to say Meri Hindi bahut achhi hai, and then I realized no. I mean, it's probably Mera, right?
No, the first
Meri?
one. Yeah.
See, I never get it right. I just never get it right. I don't know what is with you Hindi walas, like with the Mera and the Meri and the Acha and the Achi. And I mean, I'm married to a Bihari, right? And so, yeah.
छठ की हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं आपको, आपकी
Sadaf loves you more now.
I know, I already respect। ठेकुआ कहाँ है?
अभी
बिहार होते ही
ऑलरेडी है, अभी खत्म करके खाना है मुझे।
देखा, बिहार इक्वल्स टू, मतलब बिहार कोई बोलता है, एंड स्पेशली ड्यूरिंग छठ टाइम, एंड स्पेशली ड्यूरिंग छठ टाइम इट बिकम्स लव लॉट मोर बिकॉज ठेकुआ। सो आई मेक ठेकुआ इररिस्पेक्टिव ऑफ व्हाटएवर द, मतलब छठ तो बनना ही है, लेकिन हाँ, सो दैट्स अरे नाउ इट्स इवन बेटर। खैर, इवन बेटर से याद आया दैट what Archit has already mentioned about get Vymo and all that thing. I am very interested that to know more about this, the startup operator and your Bharatvaarta podcast. दोनों जानना चाहता हूँ मैं।
Yeah. So, as Archit mentioned, I run a couple of podcasts. One is called The Startup Operator, where I curate wisdom from India's founders, investors, operators. And this is something that, I mean, actually both podcasts started very organically. The Startup Operator is basically my talking to my peers and others in the industry and really understanding how they're executing, right? How are they doing sales, or how are they operating in fintech, or how are they hiring engineers, etc. And I started this in 2020 very, very organically, as I said, and it's got a little bit of a community going right now, right? I mean, if we miss a couple of episodes, people write to us. People also ask us strange things, right? In terms of our, what we're wearing and stuff like that. And someone asked me about my skincare routine and everything. So that's the Startup Operator. Bharatvaarta was just a bunch of friends thinking about, hey, there should just be a better way for us to have discussions on complex things, right? Like politics, policy, and culture. Otherwise, I mean, it just devolves into this hopeless one-upmanship on WhatsApp, right? I mean, you will send a message, someone else will send a longer message, and someone else will send an even longer message. And man, I mean, we're just talking over each other. So I just thought that, I mean, there should be a better way of discussing these things. And so, yeah, that's how Bharatvaarta was born. Both of these podcasts, I think Bharatvaarta maybe around 350 episodes right now.
wow.
Startup Operator around tending towards 300 right now. And both have been on it for about 2.5 years, I should say. Yeah. So, yeah.
It's been 2.5 years running both
Yeah.
the podcasts. Wow.
Yeah. So
Naan Curry is almost 2.5.
life.
I mean, hamare bhi nahi hai. It's not like I have any social life. But Naan Curry is 2.5 years old. And we are just 80, 81 or 82 episodes older. Dekh rahe ho, Archit? Samjho, sikhiye kuch.
I think for me, Roshan is very inspiring. Roshan leads a team of people at a large company and runs 2 podcasts. So if anyone wants to start a podcast, read about Roshan, hear about Roshan. Yeah, you can actually do it all.
I was about to ask that you run a company. You time kahan milta hai? Sote hote nahi ho aap?
As I said, I mean, I have no social life, and that kind of helps, right? But more seriously, right? I think you have to decouple time and output, I suppose, right? Your time is finite, but your aspirations are not. So, I mean, you have to take some help, man. I mean, I don't try to do everything with everything that I do, right? I mean, I work with people, and I've been really happy to get, I've been really blessed to have collaborators, co-conspirators, and fellow travelers and so on, right? I mean, that I can learn from, that I can jam with and so on. So yeah, I mean, that really, really helps. And of course, I mean, if you use technology wisely, I think anything is possible today, right?
Yeah.
But basically, ek lifestyle mein integrate hona chahiye, right? I mean, that's my attempt at some Hindi.
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
अच्छा था, अच्छी थी.
English हिंदी दोनों का खिचड़ी बन गया. बहुत ही अच्छा लगा.
People often ask me, so I've moved to Madrid, right? People often ask me, what do you miss the most outside India? So, I mean, the easy answer is Indian food, which is definitely true. But one answer which people don't expect and people are shocked by is I miss the convenience of Indian startups. For example, we were discussing online. I, in Gurgaon, my hometown, never have to step out of my house to get a haircut, a head massage, a shave. The guy just comes to my house, Urban Flap. But since we're not a fashion podcast or a hairdressing podcast, I'm sure there are, what's relevant to Naan Curry is food delivery. So 10-minute food delivery, or rather under 10-minute food delivery, is something that does not exist in Spain, and I think in general in Europe. That is something I miss, and that is I realized how convenient it is when I did not have it. Like anything in life, when you don't have something, you realize how convenient it is. So the idea of 10-minute delivery, for those who don't know and are living under a rock, is that you can order your groceries and sometimes food within 10 minutes. This was started by Zepto, by 2 teenagers rather, who were Stanford dropouts a couple of years back, and now Blinkit, which is formerly Grofers, also does it. And I think Roshan will tell us more about it. This is just a brief introduction of it. And Roshan on the Startup Operator podcast also said that, and I completely agree with it, that nobody really thought that they needed 10-minute delivery. Till they actually had it. And I'll give you an example. I was once making pizza, and I usually put olive oil over pizza after it's done. So I put the pizza in the oven, and I realized I do not have any olive oil at home. So by the time the pizza was being made in the oven, I ordered olive oil on Blinkit, and it came within 7 minutes. And by the time pizza was ready, the olive oil came, and I sprinkled it on top. That is almost magic. If you tell that to somebody, say 15 years back, that's almost magic. And I think that is one great way to qualify something as an innovation. If you tell that to somebody 15, 20 years back, it sounds like magic. So That's a brief introduction about 10-minute delivery for those who don't know about. But Roshan, over to you. If you were an investor and you were wearing an investor's hat, why would you be interested in this idea of 10-minute delivery?
Well, see, wearing an investor's hat, maybe slightly different, right? I mean, because their priorities, their prerogative is completely different. But I can talk from a consumer perspective and more from a business perspective as well. See, that experience that you mentioned, of having something over in 10 minutes and completely being blown away by that, right? I mean, I remember the first time I ordered something on Flipkart and it was delivered, right? My father was at the door and I had to explain this whole e-commerce ka funda, right? I mean, you order something online, someone actually, gets the product to your doorstep. And he had an immediate question, right? Which is that, how much do I have to pay him, right? And I said, no, it's already paid. No, I know, but he actually got it from somewhere, right? So how much delivery charge it's going to be? And I said, no, it doesn't work like that. And I could just see that on his face. I mean, he was completely surprised, and we don't quite know what we want until we experience it, right? I mean, nobody really thought that 10-minute is essential. I mean, until you have the pizza case, or until in my case, I mean, I'm halfway through, making breakfast and I realized that, hey, this pepper or something is missing, right? And I suppose that's just how innovation works, So 2021 was a great year for startups in general. I mean, there was a lot of liquidity in the market, and startups attracted a lot of this capital. Right, quick commerce got something like, I think, 13 or 14 billion dollars worldwide, which is a massive amount. Right, and our boys Zepto, I think they raised about 350 million. I think Dunzo did a 200 million something round. Bunch of them, right? And Abhito, I mean, all food and grocery delivery folks are have some two kinds of varieties, right? I mean, they have an instant, which is under 20 minutes, and then they have a regular, which is which could take anywhere between 30-40 minutes depending, right? And so this is from a consumer perspective. I mean, you just want everything quickly. You want more choice, and nobody really rejects cheaper, faster, better, right? I mean, there is a certain sense of convenience that you appreciate. But of course, I mean, convenience comes at a certain price in itself, right? Because I remember when we used to order grocery when I was growing up, I mean, it wasn't ordering per se, right? I mean, I'd go with my mom, and there was this supermarket called MK Ahmed near our house, about 3 or 4 kilometers away. And there was a whole fanfare to it, right? I mean, we're going to this big freaking supermarket. There's going to be a lot of aisles, and I'm going to try to get everything possible, right? I mean, so there was a whole fanfare to it. I mean, we used to order perhaps, once a month, once in 2 months. But today, I mean, it's very irregular, right? I mean, the order sizes have reduced and the order frequency is a lot higher, right? Nobody really orders for, a month or 2 months or whatever. And I suppose, I mean, that's the difference in terms of lifestyle, right? I mean, a lot more nuclear families right now, a lot more people living independently and so on. And so it's kind of a consequence of that. Now, on the business side, if you look at it, you have Big Basket, you have Amazon Fresh, and all of these folks, I mean, who had become the grocery or the food, food commerce per se, right? And so if Zepto had to stand out, Zepto was earlier called Kirana Cart. If they had to stand out, they had to think of a unique way to differentiate themselves. And this whole 10-minute delivery was a fantastic idea, right? I mean, it was a pioneering innovation by them. And, they've caused everyone to sort of reduce, their times, right? I mean, everyone has some kind of an instant service, whether it's Blinkit or Dunzo or, Big Basket and so on. And so, I mean, from a business perspective, yes, it's a great differentiator, but it's also something that can be a premium service, right? A lot of these folks, what's happening with the likes of Dunzo or Zomato or Swiggy and all of these folks, right? I mean, they're faced with this average order value problem, right? Which is that every order is ranging somewhere between $250 to $400 right now, right? And usko badhana hai, right? Because essentially it's a logistics business, right? Zomato doesn't cook food, right? Or they don't really grow these vegetables or fruits or whatever. So theirs is basically a logistics business which has very slim margins, right? And they spend a shit ton of money on customer acquisition costs, right? So obviously, if they're making 10 or 15%, they really need that 10% on a wider base, right? I mean, they want it on a 700 or 800 rupees versus a 250 or 400 rupees. But to increase that, they will have to start doing more different things. And, the quick and instant way, the 10-minute delivery is one of those ways, right? I mean, so they do charge a premium of, 30 rupees or something, 30 or 40 rupees, at least in Bangalore, for something like this, right? And so, I mean, you find that businesses have two different lanes, right? I mean, they can either go the quick, fast, instant way or the comprehensive way. Now, the quick, fast, instant way has, Zepto and Blinkit, and the comprehensive way has the Amazons and the big baskets and so on and so forth. So I think it's good from a business perspective. Also, the average order value increases. They can, charge some premium services. Plus, I mean, they can, sort of integrate with your lifestyle as well. The number of times you order might go up and so on, right? So it's a good thing from their perspective. To be honest, from an investor perspective, there's a lot to be seen, right? There's a lot to be seen in terms of, hey, how will they actually make money? Because all of these folks are losing money, right? Hand over fist, even some of the mature folks, right? I mean, Swiggy and so on. And there will be some consolidation, right? Dunzo, for instance, I mean, Reliance has acquired a huge stake in them, right? But I always think about it as, the first level of startups that try to solve a problem will make all of the mistakes, right? But the ones who come after will be smarter, wiser for it. And overall, I think it's a net positive, right? I mean, I'm going to stop talking here and let you guys intervene with some questions.
I have a bunch of them.
Yeah.
So maybe perhaps I call it devil's advocate or whatever, but I am not a big fan of the quick, fast delivery. In general, I am not a quick, fast person. When I'm cooking,
you
I
have to
don't
take
like
your time.
Things should take its time. कोई जल्दी नहीं है भाई, कहाँ मारे जा रहे हो?
Ladies, are you listening?
Yes, I take my time.
I just lined him up for that, huh?
I ignored it, and thank you for bringing it. But anyway, so now a couple of questions that I already have, and in fact, this was a question that I remember speaking with Archit in the beginning, and then we just suddenly thought, what, Roshan is the right person to sort of answer all these questions. हम privately भी बात कर सकते थे, लेकिन हमने बोला everything is content. Let the world hear from about the issue. So what you talked about, the customer acquisition, right? And the package size or the order size. Now, as said, I don't necessarily like this concept. Do I order? Yes, I do. So I'm not even going to be saying that I order. But the point being is that what Archit was saying, that this was a problem that somebody solved and nobody knew that a problem tha. So what you were talking about, right? The first people like Zepto or has sort of come up with that there exists some problem and suddenly it's getting solved. So now major issue is because of comes on the sustainability of the whole space, right? I'll give you two examples. One, which is what you mentioned about the minimum order size. There are two shops near my house. So when I moved here, as in a little while back, let's ignore when I moved to Whatnet. So I ordered from this one place, and then that shop would say minimum order has to be 500 rupees, right? And then we will deliver. So I said, okay. I had no idea that where are the other grocery stores. So I would order from this one. And every time, if I even have to order like a milk, I would be ordering like a lot of stuff just to order the milk, right? So 500 rupees and that's about it. Then there's one more, which opened up, right, around my house, and they were delivering it 100 rupees or whatever. The ordered value didn't matter. They would take time. They would say, "Okay, not now, but jab ladka jayega, when our boy goes towards your area, we'll deliver." And this shop is right behind my society. So, and I'm okay with it. Okay, I don't have to order 500 rupees. Or alternative, you just walk. Good old days, right? So comes the question of sustainability. How sustainable it is because if you remember, Ola, Uber came, right? And comes this barrage of all these taxi companies, and now you just have Ola, Uber. right? I mean, of course, you have other companies as well, but I'm saying the first thing that you go to is Ola and Uber. And then all the other companies got shut. You only have finite number of delivery people. They are not infinite. And so they either, and these bike boys, right? Let's call them bike boys, sounds better. So the bike boys are either delivering your products or delivering you. Delivering you, matlab, you hop onto the bike and they are riding you to another spot.
Sometimes both.
Or sometimes both, correct. But there are only finite number of people. Unki salary, I don't think unki salary बढ़ रही है. Unki salary तब बढ़ेगी जब customer extra pay karega. Now, 30 rupees, do you think 30 rupees is a good amount? 15 rupees, whatever. So my first question, and that's my big issue with these kind of quick, fast delivery as well, about sustainability.
See, that's an interesting question. Okay, and let me preface this by saying that I don't think people have figured it out yet, right? Ultimately, for any new product or service, the economics has to work, right? I mean, the business has to turn over a buck, right? I mean, that's when you know that it'll stay there for tomorrow and the days and weeks to come, right? Or years to come. Let's put it that way. With these folks, I mean, you have they have the option of basically charging more for the delivery, right? And India mein to janta hai yaar. I mean, like there are so many people, right? I think aap salary badhaoge, so I mean 100% you know you will find people, right? And there's a massive shortage of drivers, maids, cooks, plumbers, carpenters, electricians, and so on and so forth in the city, for sure. I mean, like if you've interacted with these folks, I mean, they're always like busy, right? And so, as the whole demand supply thing happens, right? I mean, whenever there's more demand than supply, I mean, the wages will go up, and then, people will come in to fill the, serve the demand. And then, Archit can probably fill us in because he's the MBA guy, right? So he can tell us about how the dynamics work. But basically, that's what will happen. Ultimately, they will charge maybe not 30 rupees, maybe they will charge 70 rupees or 80 rupees, right?
Correct.
So I mean, I think ultimately it has to become sensible from an economic perspective. The business has to turn over a buck, right? Because see, when you look at funding for customer acquisition, they do model this out, right? They do say that, hey, okay, I am going to spend X amount of rupees on customer acquisition, and here is when I see that we will sort of break even, right? And there is this golden ratio called LTV by CAC, which is lifetime value by customer acquisition cost, right? And that is something that startups have to be very, very mindful of, which is that in simple terms, how much am I acquiring a customer for, right? How much am I spending to acquire a Archit or Sadaf? And how much value will, Archit and Sadaf provide to me over the next, 3 years or 4 years or whatever it is, right? Minus churn, basically. And so, I mean, that basic fundamental equation has to make sense, right?
Yeah.
Even from an investment perspective. And now, especially so, right? Abhi tum sustainability ka jo baat kiya hai, right? I mean, it becomes even more relevant because abhi utna paisa nahi hai, right? I mean, we don't have the kind of money that is there in 2021, right? The Fed is going to increase rates again, right? Liquidity is going to, be crunched. So, I mean, now everyone is like, asking these folks to tighten up, right? I mean, so if you see that marketing budgets have been cut, in some places layoffs have happened. Everyone is pretty much running on a zero hire policy. And now they will have to make money, right? And now they will have to charge more. So I think it's a balance of that, I think.
I think jab Archit will come back to India, his startup is going to be called a Lapeto. सारे इधर उधर के सामान MBA भाई साहब बचेंगे Lapeto.
Zepto se Lapeto.
That's a nice name for a packaging business.
Exactly. Packaging business will go up. वही है.
Lapeto.
But
Sadaf, just to bring in a slightly more libertarian argument to this, for argument's sake, and I know Roshan makes fun of libertarians on this podcast. If you say somebody earns 30 rupees,
I was a libertarian at one point, right? I mean, I like most of
what
us.
Happened? What happened then? We still are.
Life happened.
What do you mean? हमारे साथ life नहीं होती. हमारी सिर्फ life ने ली है. But एक बाद में बात करते हैं. हाँ जी, Archit, you were saying something.
So if you're saying somebody earns 30 rupees and that is less per delivery, just hypothetically, so one in an ideal world might think that, oh, uska alternative hai that he might earn 35 rupees somewhere else and he will have a better life. But often uska alternative hai that they earn nothing or they are in poverty. I mean, I'm being slightly extreme here. So they are choosing to spend their time on earning 30 rupees. I know it's not ideal, but that's how, their children will earn more money later on, or probably that's how they start 30 rupees. Eventually, as this business becomes mature, they will start earning more money. So yeah, people actually choosing their time by choice, not by choice. I mean, in a way by choice, but I mean, then we go to a philosophical argument. What is choice? I don't want to get into that. But as Roshan also said, it's supply demand ka khel. Unko, this is the best job that they have, and it's paying 30 rupees. Future they will get probably a better job. So
yeah, there's always a churn as well, right? I mean, see now, for example, like let's take maybe 7-8 years back, right? There was a huge demand, right? I mean, drivers were earning an absurd amount of money, driving cabs in Bangalore, right? I mean, I know people who are making 80 grand, 1 lakh, and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, with everything, net, probably they're earning 15-20K, right? I mean, that's what it's down to right now. Yeah. And I know a bunch of people who just went back to the village. They're like, hey, I mean, why am I, slogging for 10-12 hours, right, in these conditions, when I can just go back and be a farmer again, right? I mean, and on my land, right? I mean, why not do that? I think, see, the way forward for some of the fleet, right, is for these companies to turn them into some kind of entrepreneurs, right? I mean, some kind of business owners themselves, right? So I'm thinking of maybe agencies, and so on, right? I mean, they need to think of that kind of a model, and wo log soch rahe hain, matlab, I mean, Zomato, Swiggy, etc. are also thinking on those lines, that how can we turn these people into owners themselves, right? Fleet owners themselves. And I think that could be interesting, right? Because then you're talking about the person having some kind of real assets, then the person has a lot more skin in the game and so on. So yeah, that could be the future.
No, and when I also talk about sustainability, I also mean, what Archit was mentioning, of course, as a classical libertarian, I would also agree with that, but also classical libertarian philosophy will also mention that, of course you have choice, but most of these guys, and because many of these, to be it Swiggy, which has Instamart, you have Dunzo, you have Zepto, you have Blinkit, Amazon Fresh, not so much like at quick delivery, but these are gig economy. So they don't have that much sort of bite, right? They don't have that much sort of foot in the door type. They just come, do their thing, and then leave. And that's one thing. When I say about sustainability, I mostly mean 2-3 ways. And then that would be the question also will I ask later as well. One, of course, is that how this entire space is going to, lift each other up. So from a funder point of view, because what you mentioned, right, at the end of the day, a funder is going to look at your money, like return kitta aaya. Right. As of now, what you mentioned, there is absolutely, or maybe there is some return that they're getting, but not. So at some point of time, they will pull back at some point of time, because I think 2020 or 19 as well, many of the investors actually pulled back. Maybe this year as well, because the news was saying that, investors are pulling back. So when you don't have that much money to pump in, that customer acquisition cost also goes down. Then what happens then? And that's the first sustainability question that I have, that how do you sustain the whole thing, especially, and of course aaj nahi to kal, and I'm very positive about it, aaj nahi to kal 2 companies will stay in this business. Let's say, for example, Zepto stays and Blinkit stays, and everybody else will just get diluted, which is what happens, right? In a way, survival of the fittest, or they get merged to each other. So that's first what system. Second, of course, about the food itself, that food, mostly like environment issues है, तो environment पे हम बाद में आएंगे, but I just want to understand that as a funder, when would you say that हो गया मेरा? I don't want to keep pumping in this value game. So as a valuation, of course, मतलब Byju's भी valuation में सबसे बड़ी बहुत ही अमीर कंपनी है, but reality में तो नहीं है शायद.
Yeah, see, iske liye to, I mean, we have to understand how a typical VC fund works, right? Yes. So basically, VC funds are not expected to return money every year. Okay. The VC fund generally has a tenure of 8 to 10 years. And they're invested in by, these entities called limited partners, which could be some kind of a, pension fund, some kind of an endowment fund, some kind of, college or etc. I mean, these are the kinds of folks who invest money in this. And these are not folks who are expecting your standard, market rates as such, right? I mean, they're not expecting that. They're expecting you to beat the market, right? And so, I mean, basically, if you look at a fund of 8 to 10 years, the first 3 to 4 years is when they have to deploy all of this capital, right? I mean, they have to deploy capital intelligently, and they have to deploy quickly, right? So it's a very difficult challenge, because, the number of startups that qualify for funding are very finite, right? I mean, it's not, usme bhi, I mean, thoda the demand supply skew hai, right? So they have to deploy really quickly, and then, in that period of time, they have to get some kind of an exit, right? And that exit is maybe a bigger fund sort of like liquidating, these guys' position, right? Or maybe an IPO or an acquisition or something of that sort, right? That is how the total game works. Now, if you look at, the average, returns on VC funds, etc. I mean, there was, I think Chamath or, one of those all-in pod guys had put out the fund returns over the last 25, 30 years, right? Global, VC funds and so on. I mean, not a lot of them have made, as much money, right? Not a lot of them have been really, really successful, right? And I particularly have my doubts on India, okay? Because India, I think now especially, I mean, we still feel the ecosystem is kind of small, right? Comparatively. So, and, think about exits in India, right? How many exits do you really remember, right? That have returned like amazing, fantastic returns for the investors. Yeah. Maybe Flipkart, right? Flipkart acquired by Walmart. I mean, I know, for example, Redbus acquired by Naspers, few others, right? And Redbus, etc., was a $130 million acquisition, right? Which is nothing really in today's terms. I mean, you're not seeing a lot of those multi-billion-dollar exits. And at the same time, 2021 opened up this, avenue of IPOs, right? But again, Indian IPOs haven't done well as well, right? I mean, if you look at, Zomato, Paytm, right? I mean, massive valuations, right? Paytm listed at some $20 billion valuation. And I think they're probably down to $4-5 billion now, right? Similarly, Zomato, I think they probably, I don't know, listed, they were at 120, 130, maybe $140 a share, right? I mean, they were down to around 70s, right? So not a lot of them have done well, and there's a difference between an institutional investor and a retail investor, right? I mean, IPO market, I mean, people live quarter se quarter tak, right? You can be a Tata or a Reliance, but hey, boss, I mean, if you don't show me progress, I mean, I'm going to cut you down to size. That is the attitude, right?
Correct.
Whereas, I mean, institutional investors, I mean, they're more patient. They can wait it out, right? And there's also this whole bigger fool theory, right? I mean, I will buy at some X valuation, as long as I know that someone else will come and buy at a 2x valuation or 3x valuation after me, right? And so I mean, a very exaggerated way of saying it, but as I don't really care so much about the business and this and that and whatnot, as long as it is lucrative for someone else to come after me and like buy it at a higher valuation, right? So yeah, I mean, abhi mature hona chahiye. I mean, ye sab hoga. Matlab, it'll take another 5-10 years, and then we'll see, the wheat from the shaft, basically.
Yeah, it's an interesting space to explore for sure. But let's see. खैर, interesting space से मुझे याद आया कि break भी एक interesting सा space होता है. तो break ले लेते हैं.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Postcards from Nowhere, Utsav travels to Venice to uncover Leonardo da Vinci's lesser-known accomplishments in botany. On the Vox podcast series, Monica Khurana talks to Biswapriya Bhattacharjee, Director B2B Technology, Kantar, about the measurement techniques in voice and audio space. On The Longest Constitution, Priya digs deeper to understand what is the Gundas Act and examines the Golaknath case of 1967. On This Round is on Me, Gauri is joined by Lisa Mangaldas, author and sex-positive content creator. She shares the journey as a sexpert and the need to normalize conversations around sex. And on Think Fast, Varun and Suchita discuss Twitter's massive employee layoff and how the Tirupati temple is richer than Wipro and Nestle. Once again, don't forget to visit our merch store on ivmpodcasts.com. We have some exciting stuff for you. Follow us on social media. We are IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you like our shows, spread the word, tell your friends, and don't forget to rate and review them wherever you're listening to them. You'll also find all our shows on youtube.com/IVM podcasts. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week: Bumble, Heads Up for Tails, Kotak Privy League Program, and HDFC Mutual Fund. Thank you for making this possible.
And we are back to from a break space to a regular space. तो अच्छी भली हमारी गप्पे चल रहे हैं, डिस्कशन हो रहा एंड मैं बिल्कुल ऐसे आई एम दैट शादी में फंसा हुआ फूफा, नहीं मौसा जी, जिसको हर चीज से तकलीफ है. So I am that troubled kid, troubled mausa ji today. So Roshan, I was having this and this happened to me in the morning itself, and this again goes back to what you were talking about as a customer acquisition, is that I am seeing a little change in general, right? Jitne bhi ye logistics in a way, right? If you can call, can you call all these guys as logistics people?
Yeah. Fundamentally,
okay.
They're all logistics folks.
Haan. So ye sare logistics people. Now, Amazon, for example, started something called Solimo, right? So Solimo hai, and I think ek do aur unka brand hai. Same with Big Basket and Grofers. All of them have their own products as well, right? Which is a little cheaper than the other thing that you have in market. Maybe Big Basket or Grofers bhi kharid raha hai khadi bauli se hi saman apna. Purani Delhi jaake saman hi kharid raha apna. But selling it under their own brand name. Dunzo did the same thing. Do you think this is the way forward? Do you think that's how the customer acquisition will be tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, so these guys have to do two things, right? Which is, one is like own more of the value chain and also vertically integrate. Right. So if you look at Zomato, for example, they've also like started sourcing from farmers and so on, right? And they're talking to restaurants, businesses to say that, hey, we'll manage all of your sourcing, whether it's vegetables or fruits. And you'll have to vertically integrate in the sense that, at some point you might see Zomato perhaps, enter into, farming themselves, right? I mean, they probably already have this. Cooking via cloud kitchens and so on. Yeah, sure. I mean, they do that as well. And they have their own brands, right? At least Swiggy had their own brands. And so they'll probably look at that. So all of this is so that, the margin increases, right? And the amount of value they extract increases. For sure. I mean, 100% they will have to do that. But any new business or allied business they look at, I mean, obviously it comes with its own set of challenges, right? So my bet is really on, vertical marketplaces, right? I mean, my bet is on folks who are particularly solving for, fresh produce or silk or whatever else, right? So if you look at OTP, for example, which is a service in NCR region, I was talking to the founder a couple of weeks back, and, they have this funda of farm to fork in 12 hours, right? Which is like amazing, right? And the guy is using some fancy, predictive algorithms and so on, working with farmer produce organizations and so on to optimize this entire supply chain, right? And again, IIT Delhi computer science guy, right? Applying his, wits on such a problem, right? I mean, so I feel in the future, these folks will end up owning more of the value chain, right? More of it will be owned by tech. And also, I mean, they will end up vertically integrating, which means that they will start producing some of this stuff for themselves.
That's
an interesting second order effect of 10-minute delivery or such delivery models. Second order effect, for those who don't know, is the fact that every action has a consequence and each consequence has another consequence. So that's what second order effect means. Coming to 10-minute delivery for food, which Zomato is also experimenting with, like actual food, not just groceries. I see a second order effect of it as because restaurants will have to be prepared 90% with the food that they have to deliver in 10 minutes. They will start moving towards food which can be quickly prepared. So pizzas, burgers. So then eventually people who want food in 10 minutes, or even generally restaurants will start keeping more food which can be very quickly produced. So, and Indian food traditionally, and Sadaf can tell us more about it, is slow food. It takes time to cook. Even if you do prep to finish it off, it takes some time. Roti takes some time to make. And the hotter it is, the better it tastes, unlike a lot of, say, globally Western food. So that is an interesting second order effect. Sadaf, from the kitchen's perspective, do you see any second order effect of 10-minute food and grocery delivery?
I'm seeing two effects. पहला इफेक्ट तो ये है कि जब से तुम MBA गए हो, मड्रिड क्या चलेगा, ऐसे अंग्रेजी लेके आते तुम. सेकंड ऑर्डर इफेक्ट है.
ये तो यार इंडिया में सीखा था.
अच्छा, sorry, I take my words back.
Yes, yes.
And second, I think with food now, and while I don't know if Zomato is still continuing it or not, maybe they are, maybe they don't. अभी थोड़ा news में कम है, तो I don't know. लेकिन see, even then, my assumption was that what Roshan just mentioned about the algorithm, right? Zomato knows कि कौन कितना क्या order कर रहा है. Zomato has the data. So bunch of my friends who started restaurant, they actually consult, like imagine consulting Zomato as a marketing firm as well, saying कौन सा location जो है ना बेहतर काम करता है. And Zomato would also tell you कि पता है क्या, ऐसा गुड़गांव सेक्टर 15 में खोलो, नॉट सेक्टर 17. क्यों? क्योंकि 15 में ना ऑर्डर ज्यादा आता है. और सेक्टर तो वो डेटा है, and there are people, data analysts वहां बैठे हुए who are analyzing all this data for you as well. And the same goes with food as well. So it's not like even with 10 minutes or 20 minutes. Also, just a heads up, I don't think 10-minute delivery, I think it's now a gimmick. Even Zepto doesn't deliver in 10 minutes anymore. They have a 15-20 minute ka thing.
Really?
हाँ, सारे का वही. Dunzo is very clear. Dunzo is like 19 minute में देंगे हम. ना 10 ना 20, 19 minute देंगे. So everybody, Zomato will also say 10 minutes because sounds good ना कि 10 minute में देगा. But 20 minute में.
मुझे 90 minutes भी चलेगा स्पेन में.
90 भी चलेगा. But I'm saying is Domino's Pizza. But I'm saying is कि with this particular tech integration with food cooking, right? They would know, for example, there is a XYZ hotel, right, or restaurant. अब उसके में से क्या ऑर्डर ज्यादा जा रहा है. Of course, they would know because their data also tells them कि हमारे से दाल मखनी ज्यादा जा रही है. Let's assume. So दाल मखनी is always prepared, right? So वो जो है उसको पैक करके ही रखेंगे मान लो. Then they would know कि हमारे रेस्टोरेंट से ना 10 ऑर्डर इसका निकलना ही निकलना है. So they would pack it and keep it. Just like how Dunzo, Zepto, Amazon does. If you have ordered onion, they're not packing their onion. They have already packed 1 kgs का, so that it reduces that human time. आपने 1 kg order किया, वो फट से लाके deliver कर दिया. That reduces. So I think that's how it will work. Tech data will come in handy, and you would always have these things prepared. Maybe it will have, I'm sure what Roshan talked about premium, right? It will have some premium cost. कि अगर अभी का भी भूख लगी है और तुम्हारे रूम में मिक्सचर और पीनट्स खत्म हो गया है, तो you want to order food, then pay certain premium price, 50 rupees, 100 rupees, whatever. Like Zomato already had, by the way, that platinum membership was a premium membership, right? अगर तुमने platinum ले लिया तो तुम्हारी delivery charge खत्म हो गया. तो and that in a way also binds the customer कहीं और भाग के नहीं जाएगा क्योंकि platinum ले लिया है मैंने, तो अब कहाँ ही स्विगी से कहाँ ही ऑर्डर करेंगे, Zomato से करना पड़ेगा. So I'm seeing good process क्या फट से भूख लगा तो झट से आ गया खाना. But I don't know how feasible it is and can you do it in all the food. I don't think you can do it in all the foods. Right. What do you think about Roshan?
Yeah,
Roshan, what do you think are the second order effects in your opinion of this?
No, I think food is definitely more complicated than grocery, right? Because if you look at shelf life, I mean, food has maybe a few hours worth of shelf life versus produce and stuff which probably has maybe certain days at least, right? Or slightly more than that, I would say. And so I mean food ka kuch 80-20 hoga, right? I mean that people, they'll probably know that 80% of the time people order these specific foods, right? I mean, like for example Maggi or whatever else, right? I mean, is that healthy? I don't know, man. I mean, I really feel that that I notice a difference between eating at a restaurant and ordering. I mean that there's actually a tangible difference between that. I mean, Absolutely. I've realized that especially over the last couple of months, right? I mean, and you guys are the food guys, so you should probably like explain how that changes the experience. But I don't know, there's something different in so hot off the tawa than when something comes in a box and it's been there for even 20-30 minutes as well, right? So it is it's going to be challenging for sure with respect to food, because if you look at how they do it with grocery and your essentials, right? I mean, it's through all these dark stores. So they have dark stores in key locations in the city, and basically they stock those really stuff that you keep ordering, right? Whether it's milk or eggs or bread or whatever else, cheese or something like that. And those are the ones that are shipped very quickly, right? And they have these packers and riders, and they've optimized the hell out of it, right? I mean, so I don't know how much of that is possible with food, really. Unless literally serving some bread and omelets or some Maggie or whatever else. I haven't ordered the 10-minute food service, really. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Roshan, one thing I really like about your content on Twitter, on the Startup Operator, and even on Bharatvaarta, is that you're always positive about the Indian startup sector. Because, and I think you pointed out as well, so much tech journalism is about just gossiping and talking about negatives of the startup sector. So there's sort of some negative reinforcement coming from the tech journalism sector in India about Indian startups. So I'm really glad you're always positive. You're always even if there are challenges, you talk about solutions in your podcast, on your Twitter. I really like that. So I actually feel proud about the Indian startup sector when I consume your content. But speaking of the challenges, reasonable challenges with 10-minute delivery, why is it getting so much flack by people? And I know there are some illogical reasons, but what are some reasonable ones according to you?
See, there are definitely illogical reasons, but let's focus on the more rational ones, right? The more rational ones are around, hey, will this business even succeed, right? I mean, they're losing money hand over fist. I mean, this is not even a legit business, right? I mean, this is some kind of grand social service that a bunch of people are doing, right? That is a legit, sort of a rational critique of it. The second is, that, hey, these guys are screwing workers, right? I mean, the working conditions are pretty bad. If someone has to deliver stuff in 10 minutes, I mean, imagine the amount of tension and this and that and all. So that is for sure, right? I mean, that is a reasonable critique as well. And the third is that, hey, capital is kind of chasing all of these supposedly frivolous things, while I mean, we still need to find a cure for cancer and solve for climate change and whatnot, right? Now, all three of these have some basis in reality. I mean, there's a certain rationale to all of this, but if you ask me, I mean, all of these are solvable things, right? So with respect to the first one, is this a legit business at all? Right? Well, we'll find out, right? I mean, we don't know yet, right? Ultimately, obviously, a business has to turn over a buck and make profits, right? I mean, if these guys are not going to do it, and then the next guys after that and the ones after that will figure a way, right? Otherwise, I mean, this will it'll go extinct, basically, right? The second thing, in terms of workers being properly compensated, their working conditions improving and so on, again, it's a question of it's a question of the market forces, right? Today, if Ola even pays 10% more than Uber, I'm damn sure that the cabbies will switch to Ola, right? That's how it is. And similarly, if someone is earning reasonably with decent working conditions with Dunzo, I mean, they will shift to Dunzo because there's a finite number of people, labor again, that is available for these folks at this point of time, right? And so I think we should let that manage. But on that front, also, there's been some government regulation on gig work and so on, right? I mean, in terms of how you can treat these folks, whether it's hiring, firing, what are the value-added services you can provide, and so on. And some of these folks have unionized as well, right? The delivery fleet folks have unionized and are asking for better sort of amenities and so on, and these guys have responded, right? I mean, so Zomato, for example, has an education fund, right? They're educating their fleet owners, families, so on and so forth. A lot of these folks have started offering financial services also, like insurance, loans, and so on to these folks. Again, see, I mean, these guys have to make themselves lucrative as an employer for this very finite, base of people who are going to work for them, right? And with regards to the final thing, in terms of, hey, why doesn't capital go into more meaningful problems? Well, I don't have a reasonable answer to this. I can only say that, if you solve enough of these problems, finally you will end up at those kind of challenges, right? Which are really hard and which have a greater consequence for sure. Right. And you're seeing that in climate, for example, right? I mean, today, one of the hottest spaces is climate. The number of, carbon trading startups, for instance, or the number of folks who are doing stuff on renewables, sustainability, etc. I mean, has gone up dramatically, like a lot, especially over the last 3-4 years. So those are, some things that I would say. And see, with respect to your comment, right, on why I'm so optimistic, I mean, aside from the general fact that I'm a kind of an optimistic person, I like to use the optimistic reference as a frame of reference for how I look at the world. But what is not to be optimistic about, man? I mean, you think about the times that we're living in, right? I mean, we've just seen through a pandemic. I mean, we've developed a vaccine in, I don't know, 9-10 months, right? Well, I think the previous record for that was, I think, a few years, right? 5 years or 6 years or whatever it is. And you've seen the way, businesses have kind of bounced back or are recovering from all of this. I mean, we've just witnessed like the maximum human ingenuity possible, right, over the last couple of years. So I'm in awe, actually. When I look at these things, I just feel like human beings are at the top of the food chain for a particular reason, right? We're the most innovative, we're the most resilient people, we're the most resilient species at this point of time, right? There's no way of arguing against that. And so, I mean, you have to be optimistic about it, I mean, but when I look at the startup coverage, I mean, it's either, unbridled optimism or crushing cynicism, right? I mean, surely there is space in between, I mean, surely
Absolutely.
you can be positive. Sometimes you can be sort of critical another time, right? But yeah, I mean, I guess it's the frame of reference.
What's interesting, you were talking about innovation solving certain problems in the 10-minute delivery space. So there was a lot of issues about drivers driving rashly and too fast. So Dipinder Goyal actually tweeted in March when Zomato was experimenting with 10-minute deliveries. He said that delivery partners are not informed about the promised delivery time. So they will not know whether they're doing a 10-minute delivery or a 30-minute delivery. There are no penalties for late deliveries and no incentives for on-time deliveries for these delivery partners, the riders. So that is an interesting way to solve this problem of them, apparently breaking signals, driving on the wrong side. So yeah, if there are problems, then an agile company will move fast, change their rules, change their incentive mechanisms, and solve them. That's how it works.
See, if you look at, the whole consumer business as such, right? The feedback loops have gotten tighter and more tactile, over the years. I mean, you think about it, right? I mean, I often think about, let's say, HUL, right?
Mm-hmm.
If HUL has to, give you that, whatever it is, toothpaste or hair oil or whatever it is, has to get it to you. Think about the feedback that HUL, the feedback loop for HUL, right? I mean, at least it's a few months, right? If not a few, more than that. Right. But think about something like your, Zomato or Uber or whatever, right? If you have a bad delivery, I mean, what will you do? I mean, you will obviously give it a, poor rating, right? Or, I mean, you'll seek out support and, you get into refunds and whatnot, and it's a huge mess, right? And so I feel the feedback loops have gotten shorter and shorter with consumer business today. And so, I mean, it obviously improves very quickly. I mean, see, when 2013, 2014, when people used to look at, driver ratings and see a 4.2 or 4.5, and people would be like, hey, I mean, it's okay. I mean, I don't think it's that bad, right? But today, I mean, what I have noticed is that a 4.5 is definitely much worse than a 4.8, 4.9 type of person, right? I mean, or rather, I mean, the 4.9 person is like way better than the 4.5 person, right? I mean, that's just how it is. I mean, we can go into, whether it's right for us to rate these services and so on and so forth. But hey, you can't deny that all of this is getting better, at least.
Yeah. Rating reminds me of one thing, and little balancing the force which we were talking about. So positive, negative, serious, so thoda sa fun. is that a couple of years back, I think, this came into my notice because of a friend, and legit friend tha, aisa kuch tha ya thi kuch bhi, about dating applications. It's not my story, just saying. अक्सर होता है ट्रेंड, डेटिंग वेबसाइट बोलो तो अच्छा हाँ आस्किंग फॉर अ फ्रेंड होता है, नहीं मेरा नहीं था, पक्का फ्रेंड का था. सो दिस फ्रेंड ऑफ माइन सेड कि ना गर्ल ही थी आई थिंक, कुछ ये ऐसी हरकतें लड़के ही कर सकते हैं और कोई नहीं कर सकता है. दिस पर्सन टिंडर बम्बल व्हाटएवर, उसमें ना ऐसा उबर का रेटिंग लिख रखा था उसने. Uber rated 4.8.
Yeah, a lot of people do that.
I saw on Twitter. Yeah, I saw a profile on Twitter which said Uber rating 4.7 today.
Yeah. I think even Nassim Taleb does that.
Yeah.
There was a time when people were like, "Are मेरी Uber rating इतनी है." I don't even know what is my Uber rating, but which is okay.
Yeah.
Self satisfaction. The other thing is that Roshan, seriously, दिल पे हाथ रख के एक बार बताओ, ये 3 साल 5 साल में ड्रोन डिलीवरी करेगा क्या खाना वाना हमारा? Is that possible? Because that's what I'm looking at, especially in places like Bangalore, to be very frank, जहाँ सांस लेने की चलने की जगह नहीं, सांस की जगह चलने की जगह नहीं है.
3 साल में तो नहीं होगा, I feel, right? And I've asked this question to Ankit of Idea Forge. I've had the founder of Vipul, Vipul, the founder of Ara One Man Systems, and so on, right? Sorry, that got ulta. Yeah. So I've asked a couple of the founders, the drone startups founders on my podcast as well, and they're obviously optimistic, but even they recognize that 3 saal mein to nahi ho sakta hai. There's this whole drone policy 2021 which came out, new drone policy, which was very, very forward thinking, right? I mean, amazing stuff. I would highly encourage listeners to go and, if not read through the policy, just read through some of the highlights of it. There are plenty of articles on it. I mean, it's pretty amazing. See, if you think about India, right? I mean, we're such a vast country that, last mile delivery in India, I mean, is a very, very complex thing. It's a huge country, so it's very, very complex. So drone delivery of things like vaccine, of care packages, of supplies, of ration, etc. I mean, that could be a reality at some point of time, for sure, right? In terms of drone technology, we're definitely rapidly innovating, right? I mean, Idea Forge, for example, I mean, can compete with any other drone anywhere else in the world, right? And if you look at the contracts and everything, they're serving some of the best institutions, right? But food, I think, बहुत complication hai, right? I mean, I think it'll just be too much. And also, I mean, I think in India, the labor is still cheap enough that, hey, I mean, you can still be reliant on the delivery folks. So yeah, I mean, in the US, where it's a lot more expensive and labor is a lot more costlier, maybe in the US it's possible, right? And they're already doing it at a few places, but I don't think so it'll happen in India, not in the next 3 years, I think.
Well, we never thought Bangalore will ever have helicopter taxis. They have it. So who knows? Maybe. I'm just saying. Like, I like the concept. Zomato पे सबसे पहली बार ही देखा था मैंने. इसके बाद मैं शांत हो जाऊंगा. बिल्कुल. अर्चित को बता देता हूँ कि मैंने ना well, the first time when I saw Zomato delivery on cycle, and that really blew my mind. I'm like, you know what? This is really nice option and opportunity to the people who don't have bikes, who don't know how to ride a bike, but still want to make a money. And hence, this is what it is. Maybe, just saying, maybe all these online delivery applications, they will not buy drones. It will still be operated by some third party, like a gig.
No, but that's an interesting thing, right? So in Bangalore, for instance, a lot of these folks use the Yulu bikes, the sustainable bikes, right?
Yep.
And so, yeah, I mean, that's an interesting integration as well. Yeah.
I loved it. मैंने भाई को यही बताया था. I told my brother the same thing. But yeah.
In Madrid, the deliveries of groceries and food happens on those two-wheeler scooters, which are like you have to stand, the scooter you stand on, electric versions of them. Yeah.
Akshay Kumar popularized it in India.
Acha. But that's very common here.
Those always look like, super dangerous to me, man. I mean, I can't imagine, riding one of those in Bangalore, for sure.
No.
Like, given the state of the roads and whatnot. Yeah, for sure.
you can only ride it in a place where rules are predictable. Cars are predictable. You know that if there's a red light, cars won't go cut the street, and the penalties are pretty high for breaking those rules. Anyway, coming to our last but most masaledar part of the show, moving aside from business, is the underrated, overrated, and favorite. I hope you have prepared your list.
Oh my God.
So,
I have
Roshan,
no idea.
Also, let's add more twist. Bihari.
Hey.
Hey, Bihari overrated.
Bihari overrated. Just
तो
the
घर से बाहर
reason,
निकाल देंगे.
because we already heard about the Bihari connection of Roshan.
Yeah. So Bihar is my adopted state. So yeah.
You adopted Bihar, Bihar adopted you.
Bihar adopted me, more likely.
Oh,
That's also a thing that Bihar would do, perhaps, right?
Bihar will adopt everybody.
Yeah.
Bihar and Bombay, they adopt everyone.
I mean, kidnap,
Bangalore.
adopt.
Abduct.
They're blurred lines
Abduct.
in Bihar. Yeah. So tell us, Roshan, what is one overrated food item according to you? Can be Bihari, but that doesn't have to be.
Dude, okay. I've said this. I actually like sushi, man. Sushi is super overrated, man. I mean, I'm sorry for sushi fans, but I think, okay, maybe it's my palate. Maybe it's my palate. I just, I can't take it. Even with or I have to like dunk it in wasabi sauce, or maybe have a highball on the side and like keep knocking back those whiskeys to get through sushi. I mean, I just can't. It's just way too subtle. I mean, I'm a Andhra biryani kind of guy, right? So I'm sushi is perhaps most overrated.
Like, hit me hard. Don't like caress me.
I could imagine when Roshan saying I'm Andhra biryani. So ऐसा आंध्रा बिरयानी में rice is good amount. Sushi is like इतू सा rice, तो पेट भी नहीं भरा.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Sushi is something that divides people on extremes. Like, you either absolutely love it or you don't like it at all.
Oh, my wife loves it. My wife
loves
is an absolute fan, right? Every weekend she orders sushi, and she's like a huge fan, huge fan, right?
What kind of Bihari is she? What kind of Bihari is she? Biharis love rice.
Yeah, so and I remember when I went to Japan as well, and they're very, very hospitable. My colleagues were super sweet, super nice, and there was just this whole spread in front of me, and I had to get through it. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I probably like had, I think, 5 or 6 whiskeys that time. I think crazy. It was crazy. Yeah.
What's the underrated for you?
Underrated, I certainly can't say Andhra biryani, because I mean, it made it super popular now. Actually, anything south right now, it can't be underrated, right? I mean, considering how our movies are doing and everything, right? So underrated, I think certainly Kurgi pork is for sure underrated. I mean, if you guys haven't had it, I mean, you definitely should try it. I mean, we use this vinegar, Kacham Puri, which is just a magic elixir, man. I mean, it makes it taste like amazing stuff. Yeah,
probably the best pork dish I've ever had. Pandi curry.
Pandi curry is amazing. Yeah, truly.
You don't get it in Delhi or I think non-Karnataka states. Very hard to get it.
You can perhaps order it. I mean, I know a friend who runs an e-commerce store, right? I mean, so and it doesn't go bad, I think, right? I mean, like most fermented stuff. Again, I'm the noob here, so
it gets better.
So and be very like, don't be very liberal with how much of it you apply, right? I mean, I remember getting this and then dunking my sausages in it, and then it just got really sour. So yeah.
Kacham Puri, you get it online. You can, if you.
No, I was talking about the entire dish.
The entire dish.
Hey, but Zomato has launched this whole interstate.
Interstate, yeah.
Interstate. Yeah. So you can order, sweets from Bengal or wherever if you want. So, but I mean, the reaction has been mixed, as you can imagine.
Yeah, right. Sadaf, have you tried it?
What, Zomato?
Intercity.
No. For 2 reasons. Of course. So this is not a new concept. So there's a company called Just My Roots.
Just My Roots also did that. Yeah.
They used to do the same thing, and Zomato just copied it, which is not a problem. Chalo, theek hai, achhi baat hai, karo. But also, what Roshan was talking about, right? That how food changes, right? I love food, and I would rather like to go to that city and experience the whole shenanigan. इसलिए मैंने नहीं किया. My cousin who lives in Hyderabad, so this is what he did. My first cousin, he was in Delhi abhi Eid par. And he was talking about Just My Roots. He said, you know what, Just My Roots? And I'm like, huh, I've heard of it. I have never ordered anything, but I have heard. So he ordered. He was sitting in Hyderabad. He was craving for Kareem's ka nahari korma vagara. Okay? So if you are in Delhi, you get like 500 rupees ka. But he ordered Just My Roots. Say the next day he got it, by the way, for 1500 rupees. Okay, 1500, 200, whatever. So I don't know how the flavor was. Like for example, with the roti, because he also ordered naan. वो कितना flat नहीं हुआ, I didn't ask, but हाँ, he did order. So if you are craving for food that much, then for sure, because see, he got for like 1500 rupees, let's say 2000 rupees, okay, but ऐसा travel cost में ज़्यादा निकल जाएगा ना, तो 2000 is still cheaper, but for me it's not for me.
Yeah, you know, when you're eating, say a popular food item, for example, you're eating galauti kebab in Lucknow, it's a multi-sensory experience. It's not just the taste of the galauti kebab, it's the sounds of people ordering, people cooking, the smell, the chaos of Lucknow, the air of Lucknow. You're consuming all of it, and you can't decouple the taste of the galauti from those other experiences.
So you know, and then that's like the entire intercity, interstate, or Just My Roots, all these delivery are mostly cravings. Because if you craving hai, so you are of course paying the premium. And people have weird kind of cravings. Bangalore people have a very odd craving, and I don't understand. Till date I have not been able to understand. Roshan should be able to confirm or deny. There's something called Meghna biryani. Student friendly biryani apparently. Bangaloreans for some odd reason love it. Not all maybe, but at least a lot of them. I don't understand, because it's rice. It's deconstructed biryani. Like, what is it? What, like, even when you order na, या फिर वहाँ बैठ के खाओ, you get rice, you get chicken, you get curry. Tada! Biryani. It's not biryani. Roshan, do you think it's overrated, or is it your favorite?
So which is biryani and which is pulao? I mean, the pulao is the one that's cooked with the meat, the rice and the meat together, and the biryani is the one where it's separated, right?
Correct. No, it's layered.
Layered. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I suppose, I mean, you should at least say that they're authentic to the fact that, you know, I mean, they're making proper biryani, right? Because most places what they serve you is pulao,
sure.
right? Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I used to be a fan way back when it came up. I mean, I think I was a fan that time, but I kind of outgrew it. I mean, I prefer my classic Nagarjuna biryani or the Rangana chicken pulao, right? Way better, just completely better.
So I don't think Meghna biryani is bad. It's good, flavor-wise good, but stop calling it biryani. It is just pulao gosht. Chawal gosht hai ye to na. Seedha bolo chawal gosht serve kar rahe. So yeah, I am a certified biryani.
Usually I'm the one who rants about certain food items. Sadaf, this is rare.
Khair. Aakhri favorite bhi pooch lete hain, Roshan. What is your favorite thing then?
Underrated, overrated. Okay, favorite. Okay, my favorite, just simply if I base it on, you know, the things that I eat, my favorite is biryani, man. Nothing comes close to it, right? I mean, it just feels like, you know, home to me. It just feels like a weekend to me, you know, because I mean, my diet and lifestyle also, I mean, I'm a monk for about 5-6 days of the week, and then on Saturday, Sunday, I just go berserk, right? So right now, I mean, I've fasted for about, I think 16-18 hours, and I will have a grand meal. And then maybe a couple of drinks after, right? So I tend to skew that way. And for me, biryani just reminds me of the good times. So much so that, you know, I just got back from the US about a month back, and, you know, I got back early in the morning, maybe around 6:30 or something like that. I waited till 8:30 to order my chicken biryani from Rangana Military Hotel, and then ate it and then slept through the day, right? Which was actually a disaster, considering I was jet lagged for, I mean, badly rogered for that, but no regrets at all. So I love my biryani. very popular answer, I'm sure, on the show, but yeah.
No. बिरयानी तो जितनी बार भी ना बोले लोग कि बिरयानी is favorite, तो we just both of us love biryani, we go with it.
Yeah.
Our first or second episode, I think, was on biryani.
A close second would be the idli vada breakfast that you get at in South Bangalore, right? So anytime people come down to Bangalore, friends of mine, I mean, I do this South Bangalore food tour with them, right? I take them to SN Refreshments, Brahmins, SLV, and now these days I'm in Rameshwaram as well, right? I'm in Rameshwaram Cafe, and we do this idli vada dosa filter coffee tour, and yeah, I mean, I love that. I absolutely love that as well.
I am coming to Bangalore in December, just giving you heads up.
We should totally do it. I swear, we should totally do it. I mean, it's amazing, man. Awesome.
Perfect. Where can people find you on social media, Roshan?
I'm at Roshan Cariappa. That's ROSHANCARIAPPA on Twitter. That's pretty much the most active social account of mine. I mean, I don't know if too many people find folks on LinkedIn from here. So I'm just Roshan Cariappa on LinkedIn as well, in case you are looking to connect professionally. But yeah, those are two places I'm pretty active on.
I was saying LinkedIn is the best source of humorous content these days.
Oh, seriously, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't scroll through the timeline. I mean, in fact, I've ditched LinkedIn actually. I don't check it that often. So, which is blasphemy for a sales and marketing guy. But yeah, I mean, it just was chewing at my sanity actually.
Great. Thank you for doing this, Roshan. I am looking forward to meeting you someday and breaking bread with you, breaking idli or mutton pieces with you rather. But thank you for doing this.
Likewise, man. I mean, this was a lot of fun. I think one of the better conversations I've had over the years, I should say. And you guys are doing a fantastic, job, right? Who can talk about chocolates and cumin for an hour and a half, but you guys? So yeah, amazing stuff.
Thank you, Roshan.
Thank you.
That was wonderful. And इसी बात पे करते हैं दुकान बंद.